Hello, and welcome to Michael's Minty Music for today, for this week. Today we review Pink Floyd's 1973 album, The Dark Side of the Moon. It's their best-selling album, and one of the best-selling albums of all time. It really propelled the band to more widespread international fame. It's really good, and it works very well as a whole album. It works really well if you listen to them in the album setup. This is the track listing. And these are the tracks I added to my playlist, 7 out of the 10. It's important to remember that the majority of these songs sort of lead in and out from one another, so listening to them separately definitely doesn't work as well as listening to them in order. That being said, the album is really good. The songs on the album are just pretty much a clear step above pretty much all of the things Pink Floyd did before. There's a few songs which maybe could stand up to these tracks, but as an album, this is definitely a big step up. They really switch up some of the styles for this album. They stop being, in my opinion, limited by sort of just doing rock and start pushing into pop sounds with some different instruments. Like there's some saxophone and stuff like that on some of these tracks. The ratio of lyrics to sort of non-lyric instrumentation is really good. They really hit the sort of sweet spot for just enough lyrics to be interesting, but not so much that it doesn't sound like them. And this album, is pretty much has a good song every other track, with the in-between tracks being good, but not as great as some of them. And the big difference on this album, every song feels like it goes somewhere, which was a significant issue with their earlier work, in my opinion. There were no singles off of this album, and my favorite here is probably Brain Damage, although it was a pretty hard decision. Money and Breathe in the Air are both also really good. There's a lot of things to like about a lot of the tracks on this album. So, unsurprisingly, I rank this the best of all the Pink Floyd albums I've heard so far. This isn't really a difficult placement. I kind of figured that this would be the situation when I got to this album, because I hadn't really heard of any of their other albums, and this one was the big one. But I'm pretty interested to see where it goes from here, since they have quite a few albums after this. This is kind of just after the midpoint of their career in terms of albums. I think they've released about half of the albums they ever do at this point. So, I'm interested to see where they go from here. Additionally, this album doesn't take my top spot from 1973. That stays with Piano Man by Billy Joel. It was a close race. I just think Piano Man's a little bit better than Dark Side of the Moon. Piano Man is almost like perfect. There basically isn't any bad songs on Piano Man. And Dark Side is really great. I don't know if I would call it perfect. It's difficult to judge because Piano Man is basically a bunch of individual songs that work really well together, and Dark Side of the Moon is more like a bunch of, like a single song with many different sections, because each of the tracks flow sort of into each other and out into the next one. So it was hard to judge, but I think Piano Man is the better album. Next up, we have ABBA's self-titled 1975 album, just called ABBA. It's pretty good, definitely one of their better albums, so I'm pretty excited to review it. So stay tuned for that, and as always, stay minty.